Michael Appel is standing by as promised at The Rock with the latest update. Now, Michael, an uptick in activity right now at the results centre, I imagine. But, taking a cursory look at results so far shows the proliferation of new and smaller parties taking a bite out of that electorate pie. Is it too early to declare an entrenchment of coalition politics in South Africa?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit early for that. And just a recap of where we stand at the moment. The ANC is certainly getting the lion's share of the vote at the moment, over 500,000, 576,000. The Democratic Alliance is in second place there, 309,000, and 80,000 to the Red Berets. In fourth position is the Freedom Front Plus, just over 43,500. This is a party, I think, seen as a bit of a dark horse coming into these elections, and the results are giving some interesting ideas to just how exactly the Freedom Front Plus has brought about this. I'm joined by voter vessels from the Freedom Front Plus. What do you put these, for the moment, rather positive election results down to?
Well, it's very early to make predictions, and it's too early to get too excited. But we can see that there is growth, that we are showing growth. In 2014, we only managed to win 5 voting districts countrywide. At the moment, we're standing on over 30 voting districts, which we have already won. Which we did the best of all the parties who competed there. So that shows that we are increasing our support, that we grew at certain voting stations with over 300% in votes. And it shows that people are buying into our policies, are buying into our manifesto, and are looking for a society with equal opportunities for all and a better future for all South Africans.
What do you make of the accusations around the problems the IEC have had at the polling stations? Is there anything raised by the Freedom Front Plus around the double votes, the indelible ink that isn't as indelible as they would like to think? Any issues raised by the Freedom Front Plus?
There's quite a few. I think we had numerous issues since Monday. Special votes were complete chaos countrywide, with a lot of people that were disenfranchised because of their names all of a sudden not appearing on the list, although they had proof that they did register for a special vote, or even in certain circumstances where a wrong list was provided to a voting station and the person who did appear on the actual voting electoral list of special votes but could not vote. And on voting day, exactly the same. A lot of disorganized behavior from IEC officials, a lot of inconsequential behavior, different types of decisions being made at different polling stations, scanners that never arrived at polling stations. If you look at the double vote situation and you listen to what the Commission said yesterday, they spoke of the checks and balances, and that yes, people can double vote, but we'll find out. But if you look at everything that went wrong yesterday, then they won't find out, because scanners at certain polling stations did not work. So that double check wasn't in place. Secondly, VEC 4 forms weren't in place at some polling stations, and people were allowed to vote without a VEC 4 form when they voted at a different polling station as where they are registered. So then the double checks aren't in place, and that raises a lot of questions, and it's very sad that the IEC had a lot of time to plan these elections, and it seems as though if you just look at the polling stations not opening on time, very few opened on time, running out of ballot papers. If you look at Gauteng, which is the provincial vote in Gauteng, is very important because it is on a knife's edge. But in certain polling stations, the provincial ballot ran out, and people said they can continue to vote, and they only voted on the national ballot. So they were actually, their provincial vote were taken away, and that's quite sad. And we laid complaints about all of that, and we're following up with regards to what is the answers in terms thereof.
Well, I suppose looking into the future, an electronic voters' roll seems the automatic way to resolve something like this in the future. Would you agree with that?
I would, theoretically. But if you look at the IT system of the IEC, they're not ready for something like that. Their systems gives the most problems. If you just look at the differences between their different servers, where someone is registered in terms of the one server, but in terms of the other server, they're not registered. Electronic voters roll at this stage will create more chaos. Mm-hmm. But there is a need for better accountability. And I think one of the big problems is I see staff at polling stations who are not sufficiently trained and who does not understand their role and what they are actually supposed to do.
So just looking at the top three parties, obviously the Freedom Front Plus coming in at number 4 there. Where do you think your growth has come from? Disillusioned DA voters, COPE voters that aren't finding those as political homes anymore? Where are you getting your support from now, this miraculous growth that you speak of?
I think, firstly, we found out that we have a lot of non-voters, people that did not vote in the past, that found us as a political home and said this time we will vote. And our call to action in terms of fight back has been criticized a lot to say it's advancing violence. But what we meant with fight back and the message we brought was that people can't afford, South Africans can't afford to be passive and to just look at the political arena. And people did find that attractive and said, we want to this time vote. So that's one of the pool of votes that we find our increase in. And then secondly, yes, from DA voters who are not satisfied with the policy directive of the DA and who finds our policies more lucrative, and then also young people who are voting for the first time, who do find us as an alternative, because we stand for a better future, not a better past, building South Africa rather than redressing, and rather creating opportunities for all to share in the wealth of South Africa, and a lot of young people do associate with that.
Is it too early to look at any possible voter turnout? Have you guys been crunching the numbers on that?
It's a little early for that. It looks as if there's a big mix. Urban areas, you have turnout as high as 90% at certain polling stations, and then in rural areas as low as 27%. So the average is going to be interesting. We're still seeing where we're getting results from our different agents across the country and trying to crunch those numbers. But it looks as if it is going to be a lower turnout than in 2014.
Voter Wessels, thank you very much for that. As we were chatting, just another update there. The valid votes cast that have been counted by the IEC has just ticked over the 1.1 million mark to 1,160,618. The ANC remaining in a commanding lead of 612,000, followed by the Democratic Alliance and the EFF, and the dark horse perhaps in this election, the Freedom Front Plus, coming in there at 46,444. Voter Wessels saying there that according to their numbers, a mixed bag between the urban and the rural voters. We're yet to be able to get a figure on potential voter turnout from the IEC.
Michael, before we let you go, you touched on this actually quite extensively in your conversation with Voter, but yesterday we saw the party political liaison committee getting the IEC to commit to counting special ballots, irrespective of whether or not they were in those double envelopes, because there were issues with that. Any sense at this point how the IEC plans to tackle any other issues and election objections that have just been piling up despite their assurances yesterday?
Look, I think the IEC has got its hands full from everything from the indelible ink issue to the double voting issue to exactly what you're talking about, that the fact that there weren't 2 envelopes. These are all issues that I think the IEC is going to be briefing the media on. I speak under correction, but I think at 11 o'clock this morning there is going to be a briefing from the IEC, and you can imagine that all these chairs here are going to be filled with a lot of journalists. A lot of party agents will have put their objections through to the political parties. A lot of questions for the IEC to answer.
That was Michael Appel at